I'm curious to get your take on the Memecoin Supercycle thesis itself with these particular AI agents.
The one thing I agree with Murad is that
Where do you see the current state of play now with the AI agent meta?
a lot of sophisticated VC firms we talked to, they were saying like, oh, AI, crypto, it's all a
Where do you see Bitcoin going this year? Do you think we'll get this?
price-wise, I'm not like one of these moon boys. I'm not going to talk about 500K this cycle. If we get to like 100, then we've had a good multi-X run for a new high.
You can give us a little bit of alpha, like in terms of what agents are you most bullish on? Are you betting on any infra plays? How are you viewing the AI agent space right now?
I'm very convinced that this is like the front runner for the billionaire.
Hello, and welcome to another interview here on Coin Bureau. And today I'm being joined by Jordi Alexander. He is the founder of Selini Capital, a crypto-focused VC firm. He's also the chief alchemist at Mantle, which is an Ethereum layer 2. And he is, of course, one of the hosts of the Steady Lads podcast. So Jordi, welcome to the Coin Bureau.
Good to be here. I've been watching your content for a long time, so happy to be on as well.
Appreciate it, man. And we was discussing a bit earlier about how cool is Jordi's backdrop there. So what's the best backdrop for an interview or a podcast or anything? So yeah, before we dive in, guys, just a quick disclaimer. Nothing in this interview is financial or investment advice. So please consult your financial advisor before making moves in the crypto space. Now, Jordi, I want to kick off. Obviously,
just imagine people going after this interview, they're going to go to their advisor and ask them, is it okay if I take meth? Is that like, that's suitable for me?
Is that recommended? Yeah. Is that to indulge in those crazy yields on meth? Is that what the doctor recommend meth? My financial advisor doctor. So Jordi, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot to discuss, but I want to quickly start off with, because I think that with a bit of background, because specifically for you, you have very, very interesting background. One, you're ex-TradFi, pro poker player. So can you briefly explain your background, how and when you got into crypto and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I studied economics and psychology in college, and actually like they ended up being both very useful in the things I've done since. First, poker, you need game theory, which is economics, you need psychology, you need to read people. And then I did TradFi. That was a little bit more right curve. I had to learn programming and coding, and I had to kind of get into, it was very quant, very programmatic. And then I did macro for a while, which was much more using economics again and like learning about Powell and rates. And I guess I got radicalized into crypto, and I've been in the space now for over 5 years, I guess now. And like you said, I run Selini, which is it's a VC firm, it's a market making, a trading firm. We have a lot of different arms that we do, and I've been also working with Mantle. So I've been the chief alchemist at Mantle. Been doing that for 2 years, and it's just amazing to see that ecosystem grow very well also.
Okay, and then just going back to the point, because a pro poker player is obviously really interesting, because I know that a lot of people, especially in the early days in crypto, the first adopters were people who played in the poker rooms. So I'm curious, in terms of your investing, how has being a pro poker player helped in your framework for investing? Because obviously it's all based on probabilities. And EVs. So I'm curious how that's informed your investing strategy.
I think in crypto sometimes you don't have complete information, almost never. Like you don't know exactly behind a coin what's going on behind the scenes, who's the people, what are they planning to do. You can try to get like small pieces of the tokenomics and looking on chain, and are they actually moving, or you're very used to that as a poker player. You don't have the other person's like cards, you can't see them, but you can see other things. You can see how much they bet and like how they're acting and what the flop is. So I'm very used to acting with partial information. So that's been like huge. Being comfortable with that. I see a lot of my friends who are not poker players, they're playing poker every weekend, every time they can, because it actually trains that part of their brain. And that's a huge overlap.
Yeah, I was actually reading last year, there's lots of Wall Street firms as well, TradFi firms. They encourage their traders to play poker as a leisure activity, because it's obviously all about calculating the probabilities. And at the end of the day, trade is positive. It's EVs positive, right, in the long run. So then coming back to this framework, obviously you've got Selini Capital. Now, it's a market maker / HFT. How would you describe your strategy specifically from generating return?
Is a technology firm. So even though it makes investments, it's actually a tech firm. Like that's really like the backbone of what we do. So we try to have very, very sophisticated execution algorithms, very sophisticated like pricing prediction for different assets. So like we use a lot of data, do machine learning. Like the original AI was just sort of machine learning. We do a lot of that, and we're also very active on chain as well. So we're really a tech firm that has to do investments and uses the technology for investing.
Okay, got it. And what sort of like crypto asset classes or crypto asset sectors are you looking at? Is it DeFi, or is it on DeFi strategies as well? Do you across asset class in terms of like different ecosystems or do you focus on particular ecosystems?
So DeFi was the easy one. Anyone who's coming from TradFi, that's the immediate thing that they're drawn to, because it kind of combines things that they're used to with some new fun kind of verticals. We've spread way past DeFi, even though that's still like something that we consider to be fundamentally critical for this next frontier. But we have been doing everything from infrastructure, even a little bit of gaming, a little bit of memes. You kind of get in at some point. It got too big. We had to get in, and definitely AI is something that been very focused on for a while. Thankfully, very early before sort of this craze broke out. A lot of the sophisticated VC firms we talked to 6 to 12 months ago, they were saying like, oh, AI, crypto, it's all a scam. It's nothing really there. All this stuff, it's fugazi. And, they were mostly correct for what was happening at the time. But thankfully, we made the right bet, which is that more and more things will emerge and probably will be on the agent side, not so much maybe like on the hardware side, even though there's some good things happening there. And something we've been very focused on, and thankfully, like it is the current meta.
Okay, yeah, and that's probably a good segue then in terms of to my next question for you, and that is, it's a new year, there's new narratives, and obviously AI agents is exploding the popularity, right? And also mind share. And so obviously you've mentioned you're bullish on it, you got in early. So where do you see the current state of play now with the AI agent meta? I've seen different sides of the argument. Obviously, one that's just chatbots with tokens attached, and others that think that obviously this will be the future in terms of what these tokens will power and these agents, what is being built. So I'm curious to get your take on this.
I mean, there is clearly a huge amount of excitement and a huge amount of capital moving and activity and a lot of focus, and that's something that for any sector, not just this specific one, when that happens and there's such a confluence of attention and capital, it brings out the potential of that category, because all the talent's going there and everyone's looking at it, all the big brains. So you get the potential to come out. In some cases, the potential is not that high. Like, we've even seen things like NFTs that had so much potential. In the end, they sort of stagnated. Now maybe they're getting a revitalization in a different form. But I think AI has a good chance where the potential that rises is something that's not just going to be a fad. We do expect this to be the entire 2025 and maybe 2026 as well, as like probably the key narrative. The other one being maybe like more TradFi integrations, which is easier to do now with Trump as president, of course. So these are the two main themes that we see for the next 2 years going forward. I think AI being the defining technology of our generation, even more than crypto. But actually they will work together with crypto, because crypto will accelerate the potential for that technology to create incentive mechanism, to create sort of payment structures, and create also just global governance of different agents that emerge. So we're very early, but very optimistic. And in terms of your comment about are these just like chatbots? Yeah, they are. That's what the current like Web 2 guys gave us. This is what Anthropic and ChatGPT gave us. So that's what people are wrapping, and they're tweaking it, improving it, but they're going to give us much more. I mean, Google has said 2025 will be the year of the agents. All the big firms know that this is going to be the year of the agents, so they will be giving us more to work with. We're not necessarily going to come up with foundational models, even though I think Near and a few crypto companies are trying to do that kind of stuff as well, and kudos to them for being in the arena. But I think the low hanging fruit, the easy kind of win, is going to be taking like the steady stream of technology that comes out, and it's going to be really rapid pace, taking that and then adjusting it into like all the crypto rails and all the crypto potential, and and we're very excited about that.
Yeah, true. 100% AI agents, and they'll also start interacting with each other, and they will need a token economy for that. But I'm curious then in terms of the specifics, and I suppose it's also a broader discussion around, utility tokens in general, and whether any project really needs a token if it's built on a blockchain, right? But I mean, for instance, like agents that would be named, you need to make payments to agents, or agents paying between each other, or DAO investment type agents who will invest a collective investment, and then you'll earn rewards from that. I mean, is there a need for a native token in these things where you could just use USDC, you can just use the native gas token on the blockchain it's built on?
Yeah, I think not only is there a need, but it's sort of the lowest barrier for these things to sort of evolve and become important. And the first time I realized that was speaking with the Worldcoin team. I think Worldcoin's been building for years. I went to their offices in San Francisco. This is a very Web 2 company. They're in Silicon Valley. They're actually building apps. Like, they're doing all the Web 2 stuff. They're not necessarily like all crypto guys. And I asked the leadership, like, why are they doing crypto? Like, why is this a crypto project? It's not that they love crypto. It's just like they have to use it. It's the best way for them to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, create an incentive structure, create like tokenization of everybody, every human on a blockchain. Like, you need the technology to do that. And so does everything need a token? No. Like, if some agents come out and they're just, you're talking to your psychologist, that probably doesn't need a token. If you're trying to create like a global governance layer for an agent, you do need a token. And here's what we're most kind of thinking forward, where the puck is going. A lot of these agents are getting kind of standardized. You see Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, they're kind of becoming very similar in their capabilities, and we expect that to kind of converge. The thing that's going to differentiate is private data. Paying people with crypto for their private data is going to be such a huge industry. Like, people don't even like realize. Again, like the mid-curvers will say like, well, Facebook has your private data and it's not worth that much. This is not about like getting random social media data, like revealing specialist data to an AI, and that using the data it gets from different kind of private sources that are reputable will unlock so much. Here's a simple example. We have right now something like AIXBT. This is like a very popular Twitter bot that's just an LLM, but it's trained on crypto data. So it's always talking about crypto. It doesn't necessarily have any alpha. Like, if you look at its trading picks or its recommendations, just randomly using what the public domain has, because that's the public data it's being trained on. It's just public data. But imagine that there is a system, kind of like Arkham Intelligence, that creates rewards or bribes for private data. Like, oh, I have some extra information, or maybe I'm a very good trader. I'm also like sharing. That kind of thing can get trained on very valuable data. It can pay people for that data, and then it can kind of get governed by its token holders. So tokens are very important.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I guess one good question then, wouldn't this not be the purview of Wall Street, right? I mean, in terms of the cost to buying the data, right? Like, I mean, the HFT firms obviously can afford to buy the most. They can afford to buy whatever they want in terms of data, right? So it's like, will this really democratize investing? Or is it just something where TradFi could easily take over, buy the best data sets and run the best models?
Yeah, so you're talking about like things like Citadel. They buy all kinds of like data on commodities. Commodities, like the clear example. Like, they'll be tracking oil tankers. They'll want all the data. Where's the oil moving, and all the weather data. They have like very expensive machine learning people for doing weather prediction and all this stuff. More and more of that can potentially get democratized, but it doesn't need to be these traditional markets. Even like the digital markets and the digital economy, which will continue to grow, that I think is going to be hard for them to enter. Actually, like, this is like a very crypto native, digital native market.
Got it. So I'm curious into how this relates to the hottest sector and topic and meta last year, right? Of course, was Memecoin, right? And the Memecoin Supercycle, and the whole thesis behind it. And I think we both had Murad on and spoken to him about it, and it's quite a compelling pitch. So I'm curious to get your take, first of all, on the Memecoin Supercycle thesis itself, but then also to the question of, as a lot of the hype in AI now, people who were originally just hyping up memes, and now they're just hyping up these memes with these particular AI agents.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the Supercycle, I told Murad, I'm open to this possibility. I don't give it a 0% chance. I don't think it's the default scenario, and it's not my base case. I don't think we're gonna get into these like 10, 100 billion market cap things for many reasons. And I think the clearest one we saw this year in the last few months was when like XRP started pumping out of nowhere and like went crazy. Most people and the sort of total addressable market is people that want a token that is not only just like an absurdity kind of meta nihilism thing. They want something that they feel is like some sophisticated financial instrument or some kind of sophisticated thing. And doctors and dentists and like this kind of crowd, like they want to invest in something, not just like a dog or a cat. I think the one thing I agree with Murad is that cults can get very big digitally, like digital cults, digital nation systems can be built around an ideology. Now, his ones, he has SXP 500 around, is kind of like an anti-Wall Street thing. That's like an old classic song. Yeah, it can get to a certain point. Like we always want to eat the rich and whatever, but then like people who are doing it are getting too rich because it's going up too much. So then it kind of
they sell, what's going to happen, right? Yeah, exactly. Someone's got to sell to make money, right?
Yeah.
So it is in all-time highs, though. I mean,
it is. I think these things can get reflexive because, like we saw with Altcoin, the bigger something gets, in some cases, the more it feeds on itself because it just creates more attention. And I think Altcoin is a good example of, there is a chance that we do get into some meme coin super cycle where things get absurd. And but like I said, it's not my base case. I'm not positioning for necessarily that kind of outcome. I think the cult and philosophy is something that I do believe will have some coins that are built around a philosophy and do extremely well as more and more people join them. And I think AI memes that have this sort of backdrop of a cult leader that's an AI that you actually like have a feeling of reverence towards can be huge. And we'll see these like sovereign AIs. I don't think the original one, GOAT, is in that category because it's a little bit too kinky and just like random absurdist.
Not the best backstory.
Correct. But I think we'll see some emerge that are capable, especially as we get towards AGI and ASI. If there is an AI that makes very good predictions about the world and seems to be able to influence a lot of people, its token will do very well. And this AI XBT thing is kind of like a precursor of how the social layer and the attention and the mind share can translate aggressively into like a token.
Got it. So obviously, as being bullish in the space right now, you can give us a little bit of alpha, like in terms of what agents are you most bullish on? Are you betting on any infra plays? How are you viewing the AI agent space right now?
Yeah, so I think the two largest ones right now are Virtuals and AI16Z. Virtuals, I would say, I'm bullish and bearish. I think the fact of they have this like pump fund thing, and a lot of people want to make things, and like kind of adds pyramid layers to and it provides accessibility, and it's simple and it's easy to use. I think that's very bullish because pump fund, we've seen it the whole year. It just keeps doing well. It can create like a lot of flywheels, but it is rather expensive here, and it's in the sort of entertainment gambling side of things. I'm not sure that you can necessarily achieve what they're trying to achieve, and I wish them the best of luck, but trying to create the economic layer for agents where they're going to interact with each other, trying to do it with your own token where they have to pay virtual to each other. The tier one teams and the tier one agents are not going to want to interact with some other altcoin, right? They're going to want to interact with something neutral like ETH or USDC or something of this nature. So from a game theory standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to achieve the economic layer for all agents outside of the ones that are in their ecosystem. Then we have AI16Z, which has just been on a huge heater. Now it's around 2 billion. The thing that's very powerful there is the open source community congregating around it. That's the most powerful thing. The other stuff is kind of good and bad. We have a founder that's like very purpose driven, that's very good, but is he focusing on butt plugs or other things? Like I don't know like if everything is optimal. But you have a purpose driven founder and you have this open source aspect, so that's powerful. So should be a player over the year. The one that I've been kind of publicly talking about since the very beginning, and the one that Elon Musk and others have been retweeting is Freza. So Freza is a little bit lower still. It's still trading at 600 mil, which is in some ways very high, in some ways still quite low on its trajectory. So Freza is the most interesting project in the space that I've seen. They've kind of been creating these games just to get a lot of people understanding and realizing what's happening. The first game, obviously, like famously they created, was one where people talked to the agent and tried to convince the agent to give
money,
give it its money, like its wallet. And somebody finally managed to do it after hundreds of tries of different people, and they got like the $50,000 from. And of course, like this created a lot of buzz, but apart from the buzz, it goes to show that what we're trying to do is not going to be easy. Like creating sovereign agents, these things can get jailbroken. You can convince them to, all these Twitter bots, you can convince them to like tweet, your contract address, and they'll do it. Like there's ways to tell them like, hey, interpret this Morse code, and the Morse code might read the contract address. Yeah, exactly. So what Freza is doing is like really very thoughtfully constructing like bit by bit the layers and the infrastructure that we'll need to actually have sovereign agents that are not easy to jailbreak and are actually going to be part of like this new economic era. So I think that team has been putting out frameworks, and they'll be building more infra. That's extremely bullish in my opinion.
Freza, okay, got it.
The ticker is FAI. Yeah.
FAI. Okay. Yeah. What is the use case of the token in this case?
So the token is going to be governing Freza right now. Freza already has a lot of money because she's been issuing her own NFT collection out of her trusted execution environment. She has millions of dollars already. She's probably going to be the first AI billionaire. I'm very convinced that this is like the front runner for the billionaire. Right now, I think she has 8 figures already. What's that?
More so than Luna? Isn't Luna that AI influencer, right?
Yeah, much richer, I think, than Luna.
So kind of switching gears quickly now. Another big topic, of course, of last year, and of course, it's ongoing as usual. It's different theses around scalability of blockchains and how they should grow. And I'm curious to get your take on the whole monolithic versus modular debate, right? Obviously, this relates to on two different ecosystems. One, on the one hand, Solana and Monolithic scale the base chain and get as much TPS as possible, keep on improving on that front. And then on that front, and on the Ethereum side, it's kind of like develop these modular frameworks, specifically on the layer 2 side, but also data availability that helps scale as well. And obviously, there's pros and cons, I suppose. And obviously, a big component last year, many people, especially in the ETH space, bemoaned the splitting of liquidity among all these different layer 2s, and does this benefit the base chain, all that discussion. So I'm curious to get your take on that debate, obviously being one of the chief alchemists of a layer 2, right? So
yeah, I mean, it has been frustrating being in the layer 2 ecosystem and building for the last years. Like you said, the fragmentation of liquidity. You want to get someone to use your app on Mantle, they have money on mainnet, they have to figure out how to bridge. Imagine they have money on like something else like Arbitrum. Now they got to maybe wait 7 days to go back. And then there are ways obviously around it. And the key thing to note is that the technology is rapidly improving. So we are getting like much better bridging solutions. I think at some point we'll get the Ethereum Foundation is sort of working on their own roadmap as well. Obviously, we will get more and more improvement on the UX. And I think the only benefit of the monolithic stack like Solana is just the UX being simpler. You don't have to bridge and dollars are dollars. There's not 10 kinds of ETH on different chains. Like there's just one thing and it's simple. So I expect 2025 we'll get another huge improvement on the UX side. And it's coming from multiple sources. You have one, third-party apps like Infinite, Azura, like some of these abstraction layers that are just sort of giving a user a wallet and like dealing with everything on the back end. But I think on the actual tech side as well, like all the layer twos are starting to realize like, this is not sustainable. And there are solutions starting to emerge where either you'll have, just a couple standardized layers. For example, like, we have OP stack. There's a lot of base and mode and a lot of other chains in there that are able to communicate. And there's not going to be too many of these continents. So at least if you're on the same continent, you can move around quite seamlessly, and those things can get proven automatically. But Mantle has been kind of always on the front edge of wanting that UX to be good. First, they had the lowest fees because they used data availability from EigenLayer, and using this external DA was really something that drove the fees, much lower. The next thing now they've done is, being able to have ZK proofs already. So upgrading to having that is already a huge UX improvement, and also just huge security improvement. And I think over the next year, we will have like these modular ways to upgrade your stack and make the UX as good as Solana. And, Solana's obviously like done incredible in 2024, but if you talk to the builders and even a lot of the users, trying to get a transaction through during like a busy period is not straightforward. It's sort of like it was with Ethereum back in the day when there was like an NFT mint. You get a lot of dropped things. You have to keep doing it sometimes. It's not easy to be monolithic. Of course, we'll have Monad and other people attempting it. And so that monolithic category might also improve as Fire Dancer and these things come online.
Yeah. And in the layer two space right now, obviously, we talked about this liquidity being fragmented across all these different layer twos, and there's this hyper competition among these layer twos, right? And now one that's commanding most of the mind shares, to be fair, is quite centralized. One is Base. So obviously, as a competing layer two to the one that you advising, I'm curious to get your take on Base as a layer two itself and the ecosystem there.
Yeah, I mean, Base and Mantle are similar in the sense of like their counterparts. Like Base is very Western, very US, UK, Coinbase. So you have like a centralized exchange that's supporting. Mantle is, very international. You have a more Asian exchange supporting. So Bybit in this case, which is the number 2 exchange right now by volume. So like a massive exchange, bigger than Coinbase by volume. And so both of them have kind of been trying to get their users, their millions and millions of users, to come on chain, which I think everybody wants, because that's a real blockchain. That's real technology. It's not just trading, and it's been happening. So sometimes you have to do it for them, like with METH and CMETH. We kind of give them a chance to just switch their ETH on Bybit, let's say, and put it into CMETH and get some extra yield. On the back end, of course, like it's actually going on chain. It's getting staked and restaked. So there's things happening. For the users, it's just like a very nice UX. They're just getting some yield and they don't really know exactly what's going on. But this is like an abstraction layer that's fine. It's a way to get people introduced to these like tokens that exist. So, Base, I think certainly like is doing very well as like an Ethereum kind of extension, right? Like a lot of the ETH L1 activity is moving to the L2. I think Mantle is less trying to get, mainnet ETH activity and be like a sort of a flag holder just for like Ethereum. It's not so much that. It's much more around building like a very like inclusive, forward-looking financial system. And it's not just about an L2. I think a lot of the products that are being built, like FBTC, which is like a Bitcoin wrapper that can get you yield, and CME that we talked about. These are products that are not just living on the L2; they're living everywhere. They can exist on mainnet. They can exist on other chains as well. And I think the next step is going to be bridging even more of the traditional financial world in creating products that give crypto exposure in the best way with yield and security.
You mentioned ETH BTC there. Is that utilized in Babylon through native restaking, or how is the yield? Is that you guys got integrations through that, or?
So FBTC can be restaked. It's an ERC20 token that on the back end has Bitcoin attached to it and secured to it. So it's similar to WBTC, which was the default for many years. Now, not so much. It's sort of being delisted everywhere, and it's a version of WBTC without the central custodian of BitGo. I guess is no longer the custodian.
So in this case, the custodian is on the Bybit side. Who's the custodian?
So there is a conglomerate of Antalpha, which is like a big mining firm, Bybit, like other parties that all are kind of like trusted to secure this like one-to-one conversion, and ultimately like allow people to unlock the BTC into the ecosystem.
Got it. So just quickly coming back to the monolithic thing. Obviously, there's Solana that's done very well last year, but of course, there's just this massive proliferation as well. I mean, we talk about the L2s, but there was also a big proliferation on the L1 space, right? There's a lot of high-performant L1s that have launched and are going to launch. You mentioned Monad, and there's a few others, Berachain, I think, and many other launches coming. But in terms of if you were to look at other layer ones, right, for this year, which do you think has the most potential in terms of ecosystem growth and price potential?
Yeah, I think ecosystem wise, Monad and Berachain have probably done the most of building hype and building projects that are getting VC funded even before the chain is launched, and there's dozens for both of those ecosystems when we've invested in as well. So they're the two front runners on the new stacks, the new chains, the new L1s. On the existing ones, obviously, like 2024 has also been the year of SUI. We're kind of bullish on Move. It seems that people that are writing in it and using it, and the UX is quite good. So we're keeping an eye on the Move ecosystem. I think SUI is the front runner right now. Obviously, like Movement is the new kid as well, and market cap wise, SUI is just very large right now. It's hard to keep up with exactly why it's gone up 5x in the last few months. It's I think half of Solana's FTV now, which is kind of spectacular, especially when there's not half the activity going on. So either somebody knows something or someone's very excited about it, but someone's buying it. So
I think it's price begets more price. Price begets more price potential, because it's just like you say, price is a marketing engine itself, right?
Yeah, we're not exactly sure what people are going to be doing on SUI. There's some apps that we're very active users on, like Bluefin, which is sort of like the native DEX and perp DEX. That's like a very like good UX that we found, like just automatic approval, so everything happens so quickly. So it's nice to use SUI. We're waiting to see what other apps get built or what other things get done that will kind of justify being half of Solana, which is tremendously good job for them.
Yeah, no, it has been flying. I guess it's probably like the novelty potentially of how easy it is to develop in Move.
I mean, my more insidery take is that there is big money coming in from non-crypto into crypto, and it's not necessarily crypto money moving these things. Like if you manage to get the right investors and the right people looking at it from Middle East or like other regions that are kind of actively like putting billions of dollars in crypto, you can do very well. And it's a sign of like how much interest there is in new money to enter the space.
Got it. So speaking about new money entering the space, I'm just curious then in terms of the broader macros, the broadest perspective, the broader crypto market now in general. Now, I mean, there's debates. Would you say we are, as is defined right now, in an altcoin season?
We're just in a general bull market. Bitcoin is doing too well to call it like the altcoin season, which comes after the bullcoin. We definitely had that in 21, which is very frustrating for me as like a Bitcoin holder. After like we peaked around like Elon buying some and then selling it in May of 21, it was just like Bitcoin was dead and just alts were kind of popping off randomly everywhere. That's not the case now. I think we are being still led by a very strong Bitcoin, and alts are following, but it's not all alts. It's the ones that are in the hot metas. It's the ones that are kind of like relevant to maybe like this TradFi integration into crypto that's coming. So a lot of the, things like Ethena, Ondo, Usual, all these kind of like tokens are obviously doing well. but it's not every alt, and it's not fully an alt season. So yes and no. Sorry to be so vague.
It's fair. No, to technically, yeah, Bitcoin dominance is still very strong, and I think that the question then comes to, if we do get an altcoin season, and this is something I've talked to many people about, and I'm not fully convinced in terms of whether it will be as wide and broad and massive as we saw in 2021.
I can't possibly see that happening. I think the market's different. A lot of the big projects still have a lot of unlocks coming, and so it's not like all of them can pump when they're getting big unlocks. Token unlocks were a big discussion point last year when all the charts on Binance were down only. You can't avoid gravity for every token. Like, if the tokens are not out, you're not going to get good charts. Now, if they're out and all the tokens are out, we've had examples of tokens that have already all vested, like Pendle, for example. Everything's out, virtuals, everything's out, just done tremendously well, because they have that breathing where there's no overhang of supply. In fact, if you look at Mantle itself, it's by far the best performing L2. In fact, it's the largest L2 token. Base doesn't have a token, but Polygon, everything else, and it's actually overtaken. And the reason is there is no token overhang. They're all out. They've been out for a long time, and people can hold it and get yield in the reward station, and so, like, token unlocks are not going to be overlooked in an alt season anymore, I think.
Yeah, especially I'm curious though, in terms of like, because I've seen different opinions on this as well, in terms of like how much of an impact unlocks really have. I mean, yes, broadly in terms of like the more liquidity, the more tokens you hit and the more supply you've got, it's going to obviously dilute current holders potentially. But I mean, I guess there's been some of the most bullish, this term of bullish unlocks, and we both have talked to OTC dealers before. You don't believe that
bullish unlocks was when there was a lot of buying of locked tokens before the fact, and then it's like tricking people into thinking there's an unlock and then kind of like squeezing the shorts out. Alameda was doing a ton of this stuff, and they're not around anymore. Obviously, like, their games are not being done. 3 Arrows are not around. Like, a lot of these like more tactical firms are not around. And you can look at something like Celestia, which unlocked in around the election time. The price of Celestia is the same as it was pre-election. It's as if nothing happened in the market, as if no Trump, because there's just going to be unlocks coming, and that's just the reality of it. Sometimes it's not polite to point out that a project has a huge unlock coming, but I wouldn't play this like bullish unlock game unless it's a small unlock and it's gotten absorbed behind the scenes.
Got it. And also potentially, like, I mean, even if there are unlocks, I mean, and if things are locked, especially talking about Celestia, if they can still be staked, because then the rewards can still be dumped.
Yeah, I mean, on the staking, like, I'm not sure what's the right thing. Like, should lock tokens be a part of the governance system and get yield or not? Like, I think it can, but obviously, yeah, it lets people cash out. Mixed feelings on that one.
Got it. So coming back just to the more broader crypto macro space, obviously you said that as a long-term Bitcoin holder, I assume you still have a very long Bitcoin thesis. Does it form a large part of your portfolio and Selini's investment strategy as well?
It did. I think, right now, probably the AI crypto category we think is gonna get so much bigger. I mean, it's tiny compared to other sectors, and when you look at something that's 10-15 billion or something into what it will be in like a year or two, it's going to be massive. So I mentioned FAI, also Worldcoin, I think, is something that crypto natives and crypto people don't talk about. They don't really understand. As I mentioned, it's because it's a Web2 firm. It's an actual technology company with Sam Altman, behind a lot of the ideas. And I've talked to Sam about it. Worldcoin will have a lot of exciting sort of developments that will come on. Not just the number of users which they're onboarding, as real humans, but the tooling that they're building for this AI world where, you and I might be having this conversation. In a year's time, it could be like 2 AI versions of us, and they'll look the same and they'll talk the same, and they'll trick other people into thinking, like sometimes when you go to YouTube, there's like some Elon Musk like fake thing, and you click on it, and he's live streaming and telling you some scammy stuff, right?
Some coins, yeah.
Yes, that stuff's gonna get so much scary good. You need ways to verify that someone is like legit, right? Or like real, or it's not some like AI scam. So they're building a lot of the sort of deep fake detection technology, a lot of the other technology that will be very relevant in a year's time. So Worldcoin, I think, is a large cap that can get much larger. It's still trading at like half of SUI's FTV, and the actual market cap is very small. So we are like large investors in Worldcoin, and think that that's going to have a huge 2025.
Got it. Last year, if I recall, a lot of the, you can say, FUD or whatnot, or concerns around Worldcoin was, well, a lot of governments started bad, because initially it was the orb, right, where you'd scan the eyes and data collection, data privacy, all that kind of stuff. Has that been fully, is that in the past now? Has it been sorted? I haven't been on top of that yet.
So the eye scanning thing was more of like a visceral reaction of people like, my eyeballs are very sensitive. I don't want anybody scanning or touching them. I live in Singapore, and whenever I exit the airport, I don't even show a passport. It just scans my eyes and knows who I am, and I just walk, which is like the technology that we're all eventually going to have. So people like worried about getting their eyes scanned. These high-tech cameras can scan you like you're walking down the street. Like, don't worry, your eyes are out there. Like, don't worry about it.
The amount of cameras, yeah. I mean, same thing here in Dubai. It's like just all biometrics, and passports are biometric, right? So it's like if you're getting a passport, even in Western, like in UK, US, wherever, it's all biometrics.
Yeah. So I think that part, that technology of using the iris and the uniqueness of the iris is totally fine. I've had my iris scanned on these orbs. Like they're going to be ubiquitous. I actually got like $200 worth of Worldcoin just for, doing this. It's not an insignificant amount for, many people. Almost anyone will like, kind of, and you're not really like losing anything. Like I said, I think it's more people getting used to it. The thing I initially like didn't understand about Worldcoin was I thought it was just going to be a currency where you just get it as UBI or something for existing as a human on Earth. And, I'm like, I don't know about UBI. Like people should, I don't know. But there's so much more. It's really like, once you verify that someone's a human, things can't be sybiled. You can't get like a million versions of people, pinging a website or getting like interacting with a limited resource. Because what people don't realize is like these LLMs, like as they get more sophisticated, they're very expensive to run, and you don't want to have like infinite people like transacting and spamming it. People lose money. Like all these chat GBT products are losing money because they're getting overused. If you have a limited resource like that, and you have something like Worldcoin that verifies someone's a human, and like they have limited interactions, then you can really give them the good stuff. You can give them the high quality models because it's not going to get sybiled to death. So this is something huge. Sorry, the lighting just now we're
bull market green, bro. What's Bitcoin price doing?
It's going on.
Manifesting the green candles. Yeah, it's true. Proof of humanhood, proof of personhood, right? Like there is only one iris. You can't.
Yeah. So the proof of personhood is one tool that humanity will need in this new era, but there are other tools, and there are a lot more that will continue to get built, I think. So keep an eye out. Obviously, like even if you treat it as a Sam Altman meme coin, that's a high addressable market as well.
Yeah. So just okay. So I'm just curious to get your take in terms of like then. Obviously a lot of altcoins will, they do tend to follow Bitcoin, and Bitcoin drives the crypto market, let's be honest. And obviously there's a lot of excitement right now for 2025 for Bitcoin. There's many factors, from the ETFs to pro-crypto regulations to nation-state adoption. I guess, where do you see Bitcoin going this year? Do you think we'll get this hallowed strategic reserve everyone has been FOMOing about? Or do you think that that's a bit of a pie in the sky for now?
I think the US government will not be buying any Bitcoin. Now, do they create something they call a strategic reserve and put the Bitcoin they have into it and maybe anything else they seize? That's possible. And I think it's likely, given Trump's personality of, he doesn't so much care about the substance. He just wants the headline. He wants, the buzz, and he create a reserve. There's a reserve and we have Bitcoin in it. Okay. Honestly, that's already very bullish. That's already enough. Like, that's great. Legitimacy, they'll stop dumping on us. It was so frustrating. Like, remember last summer of 2024, just getting dumped on by Germany, US. Like, it was just like frustrating. So
those Bitcoin bags all over the market. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think even if he just says that, they're not going to be selling the Bitcoin they seize and they call it a reserve, that's great. But more broadly speaking, it's forcing a lot of the other countries to, consider having a strategy, a crypto strategy, a Bitcoin strategy, maybe digital asset strategy in general, and maybe they want to have some, because it's still not that expensive. Like if you think about it, all these countries hold gold. Gold is so much more expensive. I think more and more countries will do what Bukele did and put some Bitcoin on there. Price wise, I think I'm not like one of these moon boys. I'm not going to talk about 500K this cycle. I think if we get to like 200, then we've had a good multi-X run for a new high. And we will get some macro headwinds. I think inflation will come back. It's insane for people to think that asset prices can be at all-time highs and people are not going to pay more for houses or pay more for all these like other items. And so it will come back, and we will get a bit of a macro sort of headwind. And Powell's still going to be there, and he's going to have his boxing battles with Trump over the year. So we're not expecting an insane outcome, but certainly we can get to like the high 100s.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, exactly. And I think also around the point around inflation, it seems like Paul Tudor Jones is obviously, he's invested in Bitcoin, and his thesis is that all roads lead to inflation. And also, indeed, even though the Fed has been cutting on the short-term rates, right, the 10-year has been rallying because the market thinks eventually all this fiscal stimulus, all this trade war, all these things, well, my lights are going as well. All this stuff is going to lead to inflation. So it's definitely.
I mean, the 10-year yield is. Yeah. I mean, that's I was a bond trader for many years. That was the thing I was focusing on for a decade. And when they're cutting rates and rates are going higher,
yeah,
there's something there. And like that's why I'm saying like we're not going to just rally forever. It's good to be aware. And your point about Paul Tudor Jones and inflation, people that have been in the financial markets for a long time, like myself, know this pattern, which is like, you got to be a little bit careful. Like, yes, inflation means like hard assets are good, but the first thing that happens is everything nukes, because like equities nuke, like people just need liquidity. So it's not like inflation is going to come out high and Bitcoin's going to go up. It's all going to come down first, and then
it depends how how correlated is it to risk assets? Is it viewed as a risk on or risk off asset? How does it come down when equity markets, when investors reallocate?
And I think we see it with gold for decades. I mean, it's both. Like first it'll sell off, but then it'll get rotated into. So yeah, let's not like cheer on inflation, even though it's the culprit. It will also cause a temporary dump.
Are we on a macro topic? I'm curious, as you say, as a bond trader, I'm curious to get your take. And speaking about yields, it's something that's now obviously catching a lot of the mind space, especially on FinTwit. And that's what the hell is going on with Chinese bond yields, right? Because now I think the 10-year, whilst the US has increased, and China's 10-year yield is like near record lows. And obviously there's all this talk now about, what this could mean for the Chinese economy and all that. So I'm curious, just from your TradFi background, as a bond trader, what your perspective is, what's going on there?
I mean, the closest thing we've seen over the years is Japan. Japan has had, decades of negative yields and this sort of like deflation and like low growth. My macro construct is always that you can print money and that will automatically, raise bond price, like raise bond yields and just raise prices. You can always print more money. And I think Japan at some point realized that, like all their bazookas and everything, like their yields started breaking out and they couldn't even control it. Like, all this yield curve control started breaking out. So I think what China will probably resort to is more aggressive stimulus. They'll do it, of course. Like it's obvious that they'll do it. The tricky thing with China is that the yuan is not an internationally free currency to move like the dollar is. And so getting inflation and getting kind of pumping more money out is not as easy for them. They can't export that. The US can export it. So when for example, we see the US dollar is getting strong now, don't worry about that. Like they'll start printing and it'll go back down. Like that'll just get distributed globally, and everybody will have to eat up the purchasing power of the US increasing. With China, it's different because they have more of a closed economy. People can't move money out of China. They want to buy property in other countries. It's so difficult to move it out. We're hearing this constantly, like they're trying to find crypto ways to get it out, all this stuff. So with China, it's trickier, and having inflation in China is even worse because, like the way the country's run, they need people to be happy because it's, they're giving all their power to the central government. They can't just vote them out every 4 years. They need to be happy with them. And in the US, once we get inflation spikes, we just change the president. Over there, they're probably scared because if they get an inflation spike, like people want to change the president, that's going to be a big deal.
But wouldn't you then say, because isn't China's inflation rates very low right now? And then this comes back to your analogy with Japan. I mean, if you have close to deflation or very low inflation, it disincentivizes spending, right? So then you just have economic stagnation, which I think, but where people are alluding to this potential lost decade. I don't think that's also a potential risk right now for China.
It's a risk, but like I said, I think they can just stimulate as much as they want at this point. Their debt is not necessarily as big as the U.S. debt in terms of GDP, so they can service, they can stimulate, and I think they will. They'll come around to it. It's just a matter of time. Obviously, like in the long term, China does have a bunch of problems with demographics. It is an aging population, just like Japan is. There's not a lot of young people kind of entering the workforce, and they'll just like take their shot now. I think they will start stimulating. The yields will go back up. They need to get into the AI race. They're in the AI race, but they need to spend a lot of money. They keep talking bullish about Taiwan. So they'll start spending. I'm quite sure that'll come.
I think it's an economy going like war, man. Ask the US in World War II, right?
So the war usually comes like at a different point where like you have to either distract people or just like
get some national patriotism going,
Yeah, get some patriotism.
Like patriotism going and build tanks and aircraft and all that to stimulate the economy.
Drones, a lot of drones.
Yeah, exactly. So just to finish off with, it was a complete philosophical slant, but I really did enjoy one of your tweets that you posted, I think, end of last year. And it was this, I'll paraphrase, of course, but it was this one that talked about the fact that, people should be content with the idea that the markets aren't fair, the world isn't fair, and how you can use this to frame your investing mindset in crypto. Do you know the tweet I'm alluding to?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I'm curious if you can just just quickly take us through the thesis here and how much this can help people, especially from someone who's focuses things on from a probabilistic standpoint as an ex-poker player and as an investor, why this framework is useful.
Yeah, so we want to correlate things that are, let's say, good with like their outcome. We want to say like if you're a good legitimate founder, you're going to have a high performance of your token, let's say. Like this is like one example. But empirically, we can see like a lot of cases where that's not true. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true. Having this like overly opinionated philosophy of like what's good and what's not good, and then trying to use that as an investor, those should be separate things. I'm not saying you shouldn't judge and like have a judgment of like, what's healthy behavior, what's like win-win, what's toxic, what are scams. But just because you've identified something as a scam, it doesn't mean it's going to go down anytime soon. Maybe like, at the end of the cycle, maybe it goes down. But you have to think more of like empirically and in the real world, and like judge things by how they tend to do. And maybe the scams pump the hardest. And, maybe like the token that has like a really good tech roadmap doesn't get anyone excited, doesn't really matter. So disconnecting these two things. And betting, investing is betting, right? Like you're sort of like you're putting money to work, and you're expecting that over time that money will grow. Making a bet should be less around an emotional reaction and more around like a sort of like empirical probability or just like a more like logic based on I think I've said it. So that's really where that came, and that was a huge kind of improvement for me as well, because I was making all kinds of. Yeah,
it's interesting because it's kind of like holding your nose, because it's like holding your nose and investing, right? Because you're like, okay, I know this project is toxic. I know that the methods they're using, whatever, are not organic or whatever. It's way or this just doesn't make sense. The whole community and some of these like pious and communities are like, we're the true community. We focus on these particular ideals.
Well, Nick, like you don't have to like invest in something that's, like against you just because you think it's going to go up. You don't have to do that. There's so many things to invest in, especially in crypto. There's so many tickers, so many tokens. You literally can still choose things where, so it's less about like, do you want to make money or do you want to be right? It's not that. This is not like what I'm saying. You can just avoid pitfalls, and avoiding two kinds of pitfalls. One is like, this is a scam, I'm going to short it. Okay, it's a scam. Do you think like you're shorting it because you're angry against it, or like is there a reason why it's going to go down? So like forget like whether it's a scam, just like, will the price go down or not? Okay, so avoid that pitfall. And on the positive side, there's so many of these like, oh, like this is good and we're just all going to hold it and it's just going to keep going up. That never works. Like at some point someone sells and it just, breaks down. So just because a token is good or a founder is good, there's a price point at which it's overvalued and everyone's just sort of like kumbayaing, but the kumbaya ends. So if you can avoid both of those pitfalls, that's fine. You don't need to invest in things that make you uncomfortable.
That's true. So it's kind of like a take, an original take on another take on the John Maynard Keynes. The market can remain irrational longer than you remain solvent, especially when it comes to shorting some of these, coins. But it is true. Yes, I think that it's take all the evidence and put it into your probabilistic, calculations and run the numbers based on how like militant the community is, because sometimes a militant community can see a project that you don't think has any value still rallying, right?
And the last thing I'll say on this, which I think is relevant, I had another tweet which was talking around like the mental framework and like being mentally happy and sound. And it's like, if you see something else do well, I see a lot of people like either like they're coping because they missed it, or they're FOMOing, so they're getting in at the top. A lot of the stuff gets fixed if you just accept like, not going to catch everything. If other people do well, good for them. Like you just have an approach that works in a system that you're comfortable with, and don't get emotionally affected by other people doing well. Like we shouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
I think.
Reminds me, do you know that infamous or famous clip by Ivan on Tech, a YouTuber from back in the day, I think 2018 cycle, 2019 cycle, respect the pump. Respect the pump in all assets. It's like good karma. You look at this. We'll try and share and put in the links below. It's a famous, and it's true. Just respect the pump. Don't cast aspersions on another coin that's pumping. It's good karma. Respect. Let them enjoy it and get their gains, and then eventually it will come to you, as long as you have your thesis and you invest based on that.
Yes.
So thanks a lot, Jordi. It's been a really interesting conversation, man. I read a lot of stuff covered. For our audience, they want to obviously get into follow some more of your thoughts. Obviously, you're on Twitter. Games Horizon will link to it below. Where else can they follow? Obviously, Steady Lads.
I'd love if people watch our podcast, 0x Steady Lads on YouTube. If you just search Steady Lads, you'll find it. We do it once a week, and we have some of the top guests as well as you guys do as well. So. Hopefully people want more content, they can watch that as well.
Yeah, you guys got a good thing going there. the different personalities as well, contrast. And I really enjoyed the one you had with Vitalik the other day, especially when the guy was about the banana zone. I was like...
We had some awkward moments. We had some really awkward pauses there.
Wouldn't be brave enough to ask that. So credit to the co-host, man. But yeah, thanks again, Jordi. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully we can get you on again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Take care. See you, everybody.
Cheers.